Something that I always used to say until very recently is, if you can, you should. And now I kind of changed that narrative to a little bit of just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Okay.
So something that I have learned, and I get emotional talking about it, is the power of the pause.
Yeah.
The power of the pause and the conversation.
Hi, I'm Sonia Pedowick, your host of the Catalyst podcast. I'm a small business owner here. I founded Torian Consulting 9 years ago, an IT staffing firm here in Las Vegas. And during pandemic, I started the Catalyst Mastermind Collaborative, a small business mastermind that serves the small business community. I'll be coming to you twice a week, once just to talk about business ownership and what a mastermind group is, and once a week with a small business owner who will share their stories about lessons learned, how they started their businesses, share their knowledge with you, and all about the small business community and networking here in the Las Vegas market. So let's get into it. Welcome back to the Catalyst podcast. I'm super excited to be here with a longtime friend and founder of Image Words Communications, Ruth Furman. Welcome to my show.
Exciting day.
I'm super excited to have you here because we have been friends for a long time. I've been a customer of yours, and I'm excited to have you here to tell your story, which is a lot of what your business is about. So if you could tell us a little bit about why you started your business, how you got into business, and take us on that journey.
Storytelling, yep, big part of what I am about. Thank you. Image Words Communications formally started in 2001 after I was eliminated from a contracting role with my former employer. And I sort of got my toes gradually into self-employment. And then when I was terminated, when the company was restructuring, I jumped in really fast and have started very small, just with local Las Vegas clients, because I had moved here in 1999 to Las Vegas, and then started in later years doing a lot of work nationally and in other markets.
And why this field? Like, why did you want to get into this type of work?
Public relations is, in my opinion, a natural extension of journalism. I was a journalism major. I had journalism jobs during college, right out of college. And public relations to me really fits my personality because I love promoting and sharing good stories, and amplifying awesomeness is something I like to say.
I love that. And then, I love words. I like the reason why Torian is the name of my IT recruiting company, and Catalyst. There's reasons why I named my company the way I named my company. Why did you name your company the way you named your company?
When it first started, Image Words was, your words are your image. Let us write the right ones. At the time.
That's cool. I
Thank
never
you.
knew that.
Yeah. At the time, a big chunk of what I did was specifically writing services. And that was 2001. And the market was a lot different than it is now. I have since evolved to a lot of digital and online and video and audio storytelling because my clients need all of that in addition to just the print press releases and words and writing services.
And so, gosh, do you think 2001, I'm going to age both of us. That's 2 decades, over 2 decades. The writing services, back then, back in the day, copywriting, article, what was that all
faxing stuff? Did I just use the F word? Faxing? Yeah. It was a lot of that. It was super old school, very impactful, very effective. And actually at the time, it was very easy to get that type of work.
Yeah. And so what would you say, some of the biggest change from back then to now, the kind of needs that people have? That has to be so, still people need press releases, right? But even that's changed a little bit.
Press releases have changed a lot. I still do them, more online press releases, and I do a lot of pitches. All PR firms are different, but I have sort of a multi-phased agency, and different clients need different things. I
Yeah.
also have different programs. But yes, I still do press releases for most of my clients because they serve a really important SEO
Yeah.
for online sharing, for the clients to put on their websites, for the clients to share on their social.
Right. And so what have been some of your lessons learned as a business owner? Those are always fun to talk about, like coming from a solopreneur, because that's been your journey really, is you've really done it all by yourself. You've really haven't had a team, right? It's always been the Ruth show.
Yes. And the Ruth, who is the master conductor of the Ruth show, tends to get really scattered and overwhelmed in a nanosecond. If there are any surprises, if anything unexpected falls in my day or my week. So I would say that the lessons learned: collaborate fiercely, fearlessly, and frequently.
Yeah. The 3 F's.
I just came up with that. Yeah. But that's been challenging for me. I actually just got a text from one of my nonprofit client collaborators the other day who was so proud of me because I let one of her staff members drop something off at a TV station rather than doing it myself. And she said, "I'm so proud of you for giving up control and letting us do that." And I like to handle every little detail. And as I've grown over the years, when I try to do that, I fail.
That's so hard as a business owner to feel like you have to do it all. And I think as women too, there's that element or that layer to it to feel like we have to do it all. And so how has that been for you whether it's just like the woman hat or the woman business owner hat? Like, tell us about that a little bit.
I mean, I would say it's been a real eye-opener for me and extremely uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable, and I don't like to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I like to be confident in my lane. I don't feel good when I'm scattered.
Right.
But feeling uncomfortable and being scattered is a natural result when I try to do it all, which is my default behavior.
Yeah.
So recently I had a little surprise, and a client needed some services from me that were not in my original scope of work, and I thought were being provided by a third party. So I had to quickly hire some help to build some lists for the client for an event. And you and I have talked about my love for events. Events are challenging. Is not something that I thought I didn't excel at. But now I realize that the clients need them. All of my clients are involved with events.
Yeah.
And if I'm their PR agency, I need to support them in those events,
Right.
whether I do it myself or if I hire a collaborator to create a list of dignitaries to invite.
Yeah.
But I don't have a big staff, so I really do have to plan and use strategy, which does not come naturally to me.
Well, I think it does over time. I think learning your strengths, I mean, that's one thing that we've talked about. And I know with all the women and business owners that I work with, and even just myself, is just learning to identify what are my strengths. And so you've been in business now, you said, how many years has it been? 20?
I want to say it's going to be 24 in April.
24 years. Like, how have you over the years learned what your strengths are and the difference between what you like to do and what your strengths are?
Well, I think I've learned that I'm really relentless, and I don't
And
like
resilient.
I am resilient. I didn't think I was resilient, but I've learned that I am. So I'm really willing now, in a big part through what I learned through your amazing mastermind and the work that we did, which was so uncomfortable. It was so uncomfortable for me, but in retrospect, so important, because who I am now and the way that I work now is forever changed because of my self-awareness and taking risks that I took through the mastermind. I created an entirely new business model.
Yeah. Menu of services, all of that. Yeah. I remember that.
And just being very candid, because hopefully someone watching will learn from me, as you and I have discussed, I'm a little hard to figure out. And I have lost many opportunities over the years because people couldn't figure me out. And my competitors were easier to figure out. They had a menu of services. Here's what they charge for these services. Public relations, in my opinion, and perhaps it's because of my journalism background, is so nuanced. And there are no guarantees. So I get nervous being on a recurring fee with a client and having that client own space in my brain.
Right.
I get anxiety that I won't deliver. That's the magic of the program that I came up with through Mastermind.
So it's interesting. Let's talk about that because we had someone on talking about marketing. And I think there's this expectation that businesses have that marketing is going to solve a problem. And right. So they hire a marketing firm because they're like, I'm going to hire this marketing firm and my sales are going to go through the roof, or there's going to be this natural ROI. And really, marketing doesn't always promise that. Like marketing brings customers to the door, but the sales funnel or sales cycle has to then close the sale. And I think a lot of times people think PR is going to do the same thing. And PR often is in that marketing bucket. PR has a function. So how do you, do you agree, or am I kind of explaining it the right way? I think people assume that PR is going to solve a problem or have a certain ROI.
Oh,
And there's this expectation.
No, you're right on the money, Sonia, with that. And I, for the longest time, and you and I have had discussions about that, would get so frustrated. I would feel undervalued. I would be like, why did you spend the money on hiring me if you were not going to create a blog from the content, if you weren't going to put it on your website, if you weren't going to share it on your social? I'm really smart about this. I've been doing this a long time, and it doesn't impact me. I still got paid, but I want the client to make the very most of every penny they spend with me. So what I did, instead of getting frustrated and feel, undervalued, I, decided to create some tools for the clients to use. And we, pausing and having conversations has never been my strength, but I do it now.
Right.
I say, okay, here's what we're going to do. Who on your team has access to your social media? Do you want me to work with your social media agency? Here are the tags to use. I really do that.
Yeah.
And so that the clients are getting the most value.
Yeah.
However, to your first point, I also educate them. It really is a long game, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's consistency, and it's also a little bit of blind trust. I know my clients can't read my mind, but I let them know there are going to be some opportunities. It just happened with one of my clients who is an ear, nose, and throat doctor in the East Coast. And they might not think it's their lane, but yes, being in this publication nationally with this type of domain authority to talk about your area of expertise is a win. And I explain why.
Right. So when should people really consider PR? When should people consider marketing? What should companies be thinking about when it comes to PR?
Well, I think that PR is one part of an overall marketing strategy. So, there's marketing, there's social media, there's digital content, there's SEO, podcasts like what we're doing right now.
Right.
All of that is part of your overall approach. So I collaborate with a lot of different companies. What I ask my clients, even in a first conversation now, and this is all kind of new since Mastermind and since losing some gigs because I was hard to figure out. I ask my clients two questions. What do you make the most money on? And what do you most want to make noise about? What do people not know about you?
Right.
So with the answers to those questions, I guide the client. And sometimes I tell them, I wouldn't recommend PR for you right now. I think you need to really push hard on social and digital content and really get your website a lot better than it is. Then we can amplify you.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think there is a lot of noise in the world right now about in talking with Cassidy, who was on here to talk about social media and marketing. It's like there's a lot of I should be doing this or I need to be doing this. And I think small businesses, especially, they don't know. And it's overwhelming to know, where do I spend my dollars? Not only where do I spend my dollars, but where do I spend my time? And it's like, you just think, oh, I have to run it this way. I have to run it this way. And it's very overwhelming and very confusing. And I think people are just throwing stuff at the wall thinking I have to do all of these things. And so that's super important. And then a lot of people don't know how, like when I first started working with you, I didn't know how to be on camera. I didn't know how to talk stand. I didn't know how to stop doing, I think there was a lot of things that I did early on I played with my hair a lot. I had a lot of nervous twitches that I had to just work through. And I didn't know that I had them until I was on camera a ton. And so that was super helpful to have somebody that was like, here, do this, do that, don't do this, or, talk about this way. And also one thing, I didn't know how quick TV segments were. That was like eye-opening. Like you get on a TV segment and you're like, oh, I'm going to talk about all this stuff. And like literally like 40 seconds later, the TV segment's over. And you're like, I didn't talk about anything. Anything I wanted to talk about. It was what the news interviewer wanted to. It was just so eye-opening to me. All of that stuff was overwhelming.
And that's the magic of the different types of content. You're right. I mean, a TV interview alone isn't going to help you get the word out.
Right.
That's why long form content is good.
Right.
That's why, shorts are good for social media. You've got to constantly be, in my conversations with my clients, constantly asking them, again, what do they want to make noise about? And maybe they have a new program that they're putting out. Maybe there's something seasonal and we have a tight time frame where we need to make noise about something. Or maybe I do something called brand layering where I collaborate multiple clients together.
Yeah.
So that when I go to a journalist, I can give them a multi-source story.
Right.
So all of that can help serve your objective. But yeah, those like minute 30 TV segments that we did a bunch of are
overwhelming.
Jarring.
Right. But they also, if you're working with the right PR expert like yourself, like positioning yourself as the subject matter expert. So like when I was launching my IT recruiting firm, like could I be put on as the person to talk about jobs, summer jobs, IT jobs, women in jobs? That was always super helpful to have you kind of like looking out for those opportunities at the different times of year so that Torian could be highlighted and I could be highlighted as that expert in that field. So that was really valuable. So really, I think maybe the takeaway is if you're looking for somebody as a PR expert or a partner is like, how do they know what's important to you as a brand? Right. And so that I think that might be a good message out to people is equally as important as a social media marketing manager, partner. If you're looking for that kind of partner, do they understand what you're trying to accomplish? And I think so many times people are just looking for what's advertised as I can do this, but really do they understand what you as a company are trying to execute on, which you touched on a little bit earlier.
And then, to your credit, Sonia, I would say that you are a real visionary. And you kind of had blind trust. Like, why am I doing this interview about summer jobs in an industry that isn't even my target?
Right.
Because we were marketing you at the time as a jobs expert, as a recruiting expert, as a how to interview expert. Remember during COVID, we did that one about how to dress for a job interview?
Yeah.
We did some fun stuff.
Yeah, definitely. We did like how to Zoom. We did a lot of really cool things. So yeah, it was super fun early on. And I think also I recognized that I needed some practice. Like I wanted to like leverage those opportunities to kind of work through my own insecurities about being on camera. I had a lot of imposter syndrome. I had a lot of concerns about my image on camera. I had weight concerns. I was considerably more heavy, way overweight at the time. So there was things that I personally, as my own self, was wanting to overcome. So I selfishly use those opportunities to navigate some of those concerns. And like, if I take every one of those opportunities and I'm using it as practice, and where else can I get practice than Channel 13 or Channel 8 or whatever was willing to put me on camera to maybe navigate through those opportunities. So, yeah. So how about what else as a business owner, like what advice do you have for other people? And what comes to mind is, like the landscape is changing. So many things are happening in the world, at a large scale. What advice do you have for women business owners, small business owners?
So much. Something that I always used to say until very recently is, if you can, you should. And now I kind of changed that narrative to a little bit of just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Okay.
So something that I have learned, and I get emotional talking about it, is the power of the pause.
Yeah.
The power of the pause and the conversation. I want to move really fast.
Right.
You and I are both quick starts on the Colby scale. I learned through Mastermind, through Gail Swift. And the power of the pause is so important for all of us.
Yeah.
Making decisions more quickly and then adjusting if needed.
Yeah.
Plan and adjust.
Yeah. And naturally, like we had Gail on, so she talked a little bit about that quick start, and people can go back and watch that episode. But, you and I are naturally have a need to take risks. That's the quick start in us. We don't need a lot of information to take those risks. I venture to think our husbands are probably low on quick starts. They're more probably higher on fact finders. They need a lot of more information, which is fine. Like the world needs all of those different people to do that. It doesn't make it good or bad, right? It just is what we need to act on the different things, right? The different choices that are put in front of us. And I think it makes life more full for sure. Michael and you probably live a more full life because sometimes you make decisions slower and plan trips differently. And Ben and I have more adventure or different experiences in our life because we are different in our marriage. So, and our business, right? Ben runs a financial type business. I run a sales, entrepreneurial business in a different way. And I think, and we run our family like in that way, like sometimes it's more risk, sometimes it takes more planning. So, he's about to take Arden on a bunch of college tours, right? And it's funny because I think there's this like, oh, does mom want to go on some of these college tours or should dad go on all of them? And I was like, I'm tapping the heck out of this experience because Arden is like Ben. She needs a lot of information. She makes decisions very much like he does. So if they're going to go on a lot of college tours, it makes sense for the two people who make decisions the same to go on all of the tours, right? Versus to chop it up between two different kind of decision makers and then try to gather all the information at the end to make a decision. So I think Arden was like, well, I should probably take mom on some of the trips and take dad on some of the trips. And I sat down with her and I said, look, at the end, when you have to lay out all the information and aggregate it all together, like the financial aid, the way the campus looked, who had which kind of programs, campus culture, when you have to like lay out all the tours you went on and then make a decision, is it going to be better to have gone on all the trips with the same person or with different? And you don't have to answer this now, but when you have to make the decision, what's going to be better, that I go on some and dad go on some, or that the same person have visited all the schools with you? Take the emotion out of it, take it, because it's not about me, it's about you and your final decision. And the next morning she's like, it's probably better if I go on the trip with the same person. That would help me make the decision. I said, then you need to take the trip with your dad. And she was like, thanks, mom. Because I think at the end, if she were to, the way they collect data, and I know it's going to go on a spreadsheet, like, because that's how they operate. For me, it'll probably go on a notebook or piece of paper or not at all. It's just how our brains work to make decisions. Do you know what I mean? I'll be like, oh, that dorm room was kind of cool. And this was kind of cool. And do you remember this? And she'd probably be, what did they say about traveling international? And I'd be like, I don't remember which trip was which. And it's just, we gather information differently. And so for her to make that decision at the end, she needs to be on the trip with the fact finder, not the quick start, not the risk taker. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think about my marriage. I think about my relationships. I think about my clients. And, and I've been in business a long time. And I just recently am learning, even early this morning, a client sent me a list of times for a phone call. And my head was exploding because I had so much on my plate. And I almost wrote this long email. And then I just called her immediately.
Yeah, quick start.
I'm like, do you have a minute to talk right now?
Yeah.
Because let's just figure this out. And that was good. And she was cool with it, but some people wouldn't be.
Yeah.
So you've got to kind of know who you're working with, just like you did in your situation.
Yeah. It's just like how we have to operate. So what we need to operate is just different, right?
So my advice to others, and I do mentor a number of younger people in business, and my advice to others is to slow down and pause.
Yeah.
And also something I've been thinking about a lot in this season of my business that I encourage younger people to think about earlier is, what's your favorite thing?
Yeah.
Partially the quick start in me, and partially just because I have an impulsive personality, the shiny penny is super attractive to me.
Right.
And sometimes, like you said, I'll say yes without information. So sometimes it really is good to have that clarifying conversation, learn about the scope of work, and also industries.
Yeah.
Get real clear on industries that I'm really good at, or that they, these people that we're trying to inspire are really like,
Right.
but have them do all that research. Just like when you're going to med school, you do all the rotations.
Right.
I recommend everyone do all the rotations in
Yeah.
whatever business they're in.
Yeah. And it's important to know in business everyone talks about balance, and I just don't subscribe to that because I don't know if there's anyone ever really finds balance, right? And then especially women, you can't really equate balance because we all have different, some choose to have families, some don't, some have, multiple careers, some don't, some got degrees, some didn't. And so trying to equate balance to everyone is, I don't know, it's an unfair sort of like measurement, I think. But being able to just pause, to use your language, and decide what's important, and then being able to to use choice to decide. And I love that you're in this season of life where you're getting to take care of your brother a lot, right? And being able to choose. And your industry allows you to be very virtual, right? Like you can you can do what you do really from wherever. So you're getting to fly a lot back to Indiana to spend time with your brother, which is really cute and nice, and be a caretaker for him. And your clients it's seamless to them. They don't know where you're doing your work from, nor do I think they care.
It's seamless to them, but it's not always seamless to me. So as you know, and we've had heavy discussions about this, I'm an overfunctioner, and it's been a really good learning experience. I decided it's one of my values, and it brings me a lot of joy to be that person for him. I'm his co-guardian, but to really spend that time with him. And all of my clients have to understand I might not be available for that event.
Right.
I may have something already on my calendar, and I'm a small company. So, I am hiring more people here on the ground or in whatever cities that I'm working in.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons when I started taking care of my mom, who I have since lost to lung cancer last year, I realized I need to set myself up from an infrastructure standpoint so that I can work from anywhere.
Yeah.
Or to take time off and be okay and not go out of business.
Yeah. And being able to know what your core values are in business and personal life, and then lean into those, and to be able to choose clients that align with that is super, super important. Not everyone does that as a small business.
And I think it's been really uncomfortable, Sonia, for me. And I don't like being uncomfortable, but I think that sometimes I've learned that I'll have clients that don't work with how I'm working now, need more access to me personally. And those are clients I'm having to shift to a different role with.
Yeah.
I'm in the process of doing that right now. And, they're they're interviewing my competitors about certain scopes and certain projects. And I'm thrilled because I might not have had the courage to make that change myself without this learning and without being in this season of life.
I think we could do a whole show on being uncomfortable. I'm going to actually venture to say that there's some secondary gain or something at an unconscious level that uncomfortableness actually resonates with both you and I, because I don't mind being uncomfortable, because with every breakdown, there's a breakthrough. When the uncomfortableness happens, me, I move into it more because I believe there's growth on the other side of it. I think we could do a whole show on uncomfortableness with you, because I think every time, Ruth, you've been in an uncomfortable situation, you've grown from it. You've learned something from it, and something beautiful has come on the other side of it. And I think the more you resist, that which you resist persists. So I don't know. I think that we could do probably a whole show on uncomfortableness, because the more you talk about it, the more it makes me think there's something we gain at an unconscious level about being in that space.
Well, I think that's interesting. I had never looked at it that way, because I felt uncomfortable being uncomfortable. However, that drives me to achieve, to get results, to avoid procrastinating.
Right.
And in all aspects of my life, to be super, super resourceful.
Yeah.
Which I have been, especially in the last few years, I've been really resourceful.
Yeah.
In my personal life, as well as in business.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting, what next time you're in an uncomfortable state, to ask yourself, what's the purpose of this feeling right now? What is there for me to learn right now? Instead of spinning in the uncomfortable, wondering, what is there right now? Because there's probably something that you're learning and growing from. Because I feel like if I think back on all of our years together, I think every time you grew from it, you learned something from it. There was some magical saying that came out of it that you applied to some new learning for yourself and some new process, some new projects, some new, Ruthism that came out of it that wasn't so bad after all.
Yeah, no, that's a total eye opener to me. And I just know that I am a different person, as I approach my 24th year in business, as I was, I'm more confident. I'm a little bit less afraid to disappoint people.
Yeah.
I never like to say I did my best. That always bothers me when people say that. But I really do like to say that I do everything I can.
Sure.
So, and along the way, sometimes there are lots of uncomfortable conversations and situations and challenges. And in my business, public relations, there's a lot of starts and stops, a lot of rejection, a lot of things that get bumped for breaking news. And that kind of drives me and challenges me and makes me more creative.
I think being in business for yourself was comfortable all the time. Everyone would do it. You know what I mean? Like that's what it is. If it was easy, right, then everyone would do it. I think being an entrepreneur is challenging. It's hard, but everyone wants a challenge and wants to create and innovate. And that's the hard. We just get to choose our hard.
And I was talking to another PR firm owner who has, I think, 5 employees right now. She's had a lot of growth. I'm really inspired by her. And we are starting to collaborate a little bit. And she was telling, we both do work locally and nationally. And I like to think that by letting myself be uncomfortable, I'm evolving into a little bit more of a unicorn in my business.
Yeah.
And it's made me a lot more marketable.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Because I'm willing to help people with things that are out of my lane.
Yeah. Yeah. No. So Mastermind, what do you think was your biggest maybe aha from it? What did you love about it?
Well, I loved learning that I'm not always right, and a lot of times I'm dead wrong.
Yes. I think that was a lot of my journey too. Like sometimes I'm the problem. When I was trying to buy my business and then bought a business and then, I was peer to the people of the business I bought and then I became a business owner. That was like, oh shit, for lack of a better term. There was so much learning in that. And then I'd go in and be like, oh my God, I have this problem. And what do I do? And then all of a sudden I'd be like this big mirror in front of me. That was super eye-opening in my first years of actual business ownership that, maybe how I'm leading, how I'm showing up was very much the problem. And that was great to have that room to see myself in was a super huge gift for me in Mastermind. It sounds like kind of what you're saying.
Yes. And, I equate Mastermind, especially the way that you have curated your different groups. I equate it kind of like, I was thinking about it this morning driving over here. I equate it as like a co-ed fraternity sorority with all nice people that really care about you. But there is that element of the rush that is super jarring when you first start, where you have to do all these challenges and all these things. But I really, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, what's up for you in 2025 that people need to know?
Right now, I am really honing in on all of my existing clients for my PR firm locally, nationally, regionally. And then the other thing that I'm really expanding quite a bit with more infrastructure, because without infrastructure, there is no momentum, is really beefing up my SEO PR arm, which is something that I work with my clients on to really help them pop more in search.
That's awesome.
Working with them on those tools. That's something I'm focusing on a lot right now.
Cool. And how can people find you?
The best possible way is through my website, which is ruthfurman.com, ruthfurman.com. There's even a little contact form on there.
Awesome.
They can DM me on social media. They can call, they can text, but through my website's the best because I have a way that I track that so that I don't forget.
That's awesome. And advice for people. whether it's business or mastermind advice, what's your closing advice for people?
My closing advice to people is love yourself and your business in the skin that you're in. However, always be shifting, always be changing, and be open to advice from someone who may be a lot smarter than you are.
That's right. And the best place to get that advice sometimes is obviously in circles or masterminds where you might find those people. So, yeah, that'd be awesome. Well, thank you for being here. It was super fun to just catch up with you and hear your story. I didn't know that about your company name, so that was something new to learn today.
And thank you for always challenging me and for always being loyal and always inspiring me to question myself.
Oh, well, I love you, Ruth. Thanks for being a big champion of mine all these years. If you like what you saw today on the Catalyst podcast, make sure you subscribe to our show, like it, and share it with someone who you think might also find value.